Classic Business with Michael Avery, sponsored by Alex Forbes, for insight, advice, and impact.
Well, as we saw with the contraction in first quarter GDP out earlier today, the South African economy remains in ICU. The one thing I've been amazed by is when I speak to entrepreneurs or owners of small businesses on my platform since COVID, it's clear that the spirit of entrepreneurship, the spirit of just getting on with it, is more vibrant than ever, despite the challenges in South Africa, of which we know are many. And if anything, I get a sense that the greater the challenge, the more it stiffens the resolve of South African jockeys. This was certainly one of the findings of the Xero 2024 State of Small Business Report. And to talk about what the 7th administration needs to do to support small and medium business in the country, I'm joined now by Colin Timmis, Xero SA Country Manager, and Daniel Goldberg, a co-founder of Bridgement, a fintech that provides innovative solutions for small businesses. Colin, welcome. We're all on tenterhooks about the shape of the 7th administration. But while we await whatever that coalition may end up looking like, how does the optimism and the ambition reflected by small business owners that you saw in your report shape their approach to overcoming the significant challenges that we see in South Africa, such as load shedding and inflation and all of this political uncertainty?
It's, as you say, quite interesting to see that 87% of the small businesses we surveyed are optimistic about the business outlook. It is a really challenging environment to do business, but as I think we've spoken about previously at Xero, South African small business owners are a lot more prepared and a lot more resilient than a lot of their counterparts in other first world countries, like let's say the US, the UK, Australia and Canada, where in other reports we've also seen that small business owners in South Africa are happier and more content than a lot of their counterparts in those countries. So I think there is a lot of change that takes place when you have an election like ours most recently, but we're dealing with small business owners that have been struggling with load shedding, a very volatile rand and currency and uncertain operating environment, and many of them have built in a lot of resilience into their businesses. And so while that does not mean that they don't have any challenges, they're just quite prepared for them, and I think we're seeing that in the report, which shows that they are optimistic about the outlook.
What are some of those challenges? Let's just unpack what small businesses and entrepreneurs, and they often, we use them interchangeably, but they are quite different. What are some of the challenges that they're experiencing or that they're saying are their big headaches inside their businesses at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to start with. And we use the words entrepreneurship and business ownership and SME and SMME interchangeably. And I think one of the things we can start doing in the SME landscape in South Africa is getting a common language and terminology right that best describes the small business owners that we're speaking to. And perhaps, entrepreneurs are starting multiple businesses and willing to take a bit more risk. The truth is that many small business owners are not. They're just running a single company. They're employing a few people and feeding their families and looking to grow and sustain their business. And their needs are very different. So one of the very first things that I think we probably need to look to do in the coming months and years is how can we better define who it is that we're actually supporting? Yeah. Not just between formal and informal economy, but who are these individuals? What are their needs? What are their points of value? And then we can better understand how we create an environment that makes it more conducive to doing business. So the challenges are the same across any of those business owners or entrepreneurs. The ones you always hear about, like load shedding and price volatility and currency fluctuations, probably uncertain, policies and support when it comes to small business. But a lot of those have been around for a while. And as I said, previously, I think a lot of companies have adjusted and are prepared for those. But the reality is, I think we need to take a look at all the organizations and stakeholders that are set up to support small business and really ask ourselves, are we connected and understanding their needs properly? And how can we create a more connected environment where we can, facilitate conversations and use great technology to support them better and remove some of that red tape and some of those blockers that prevent people from not just getting access to funding and capital, but also growing their business and getting new customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Access to markets is a big one, but access to funding does still it always crops up. And Daniel, from your perspective as someone who's really pioneered this space, I recall us chatting through COVID and that COVID loan guarantee scheme and all of the funding that was made available through traditional channels, and it didn't end up getting to those who so desperately needed it. It was an abysmal failure. What do you see as the most significant barriers to accessing finance that small businesses face today, and how are you as Bridgement innovating to help address some of these challenges?
Yeah, so I think it's super interesting. I mean, we've been seeing and talking about this for many years. And for Xero to come out with this report and show some of the stats is really fascinating. Seeing businesses still struggling with late payments, with access to funding, with managing cash flow, it's really still top of mind. One of the interesting stats that I saw in the report was that 72% of business owners have actually had to use personal funds to fund their businesses. And as high as 92% of the SMEs actually haven't applied for funding to banks or other traditional institutions in the last 12 months. And unfortunately, I don't think that's because they don't need the funding. I think many SMEs and business owners are disheartened and don't believe that they will be eligible or successfully, get approved for the funding that they need. So, when it comes to why are businesses not able to obtain the funding that they need, with small businesses, SMEs, there can be several factors at play. It can have anything to do with the credit profiles of the directors or owners of the business. It could have something to do with the quality of the financial information. Are they actually using a proper accounting package and have proper financial records that a financial institution can assess them on? And there really can be many other factors that make it difficult for businesses to access funding. So, when it comes to a fintech like Bridgement, what we try and do is try and remove those barriers, remove the red tape, and make it much easier for businesses to access funding without the need for paperwork and without the need for several years of financial statements, etc. And so it's super interesting to see the statistics in this report, and we've seen it at Bridgement as well.
Yeah, and just to bring you in on that point, Colin, from the report, 83% say that their accountant has been crucial in helping their business survive or grow, and 81% say their accountant is their most trusted business advisor. Now, there's a real opportunity, isn't there, to work with the accounting profession that advises, particularly business accountants that advise small businesses, to equip them with, the insights and the knowledge of accessing alternative lenders like a Bridgement, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, as many will know, there's been massive changes in the accounting industry all around the world over the last 10 to 15 years. Technology has disrupted the way accountants work in the same way that it's disrupted other industries like the taxi industry. And so it is important that we, take the opportunity to look at where are the skills and experience in the economy that can support small businesses. And the truth is that a lot of it is sitting in the accounting industry. And we've long said, and we recently mentioned at our roadshows in Cape Town and Johannesburg to accountants, that we see them as being the untapped resource of the South African economy. Like, they really are individuals who have the experience across so many industries. They're, well educated. They're speaking to small businesses on a daily basis, far more than almost every other stakeholder that's involved in the small business space. And so how do we create an environment where they can, leverage those skills and that knowledge and support small businesses more? And one of the ways we do that is through technology. So choosing an accountant is really important, but choosing the right accountant is probably more important, and making sure that you don't feel as a small business owner that you're being excluded from the financial processes of your company. Like, I think it's really, we're in a day and age now where small business owners should feel really comfortable and really at home looking at their financial data and their financial information. And for some people that might sound like extremely foreign, because that's usually a service and a relationship that's abdicated, till the end of the year when taxes have to be filed or VAT needs to be done. But we really are in a space now where there's thousands of accountants across the country who are positioning themselves to provide that level of advice and that level of support that can really help businesses grow. And I think that's a really exciting place to be.
Yeah, because once you start leaning into that data, that very often is unlocked through that relationship with your accountant, but also having the technology to be able to access real-time management accounts, you can then start pulling levers inside your business that open opportunities for efficiency gains or new revenue streams or new growth areas. Daniel, interesting to see that late payments and cash flow remain issues. 45% of the surveyed businesses spend 1 to 2 months a year chasing things like late payments. And to your earlier point, 92% haven't applied for funding or loans from a bank over the last 12 months. And as you said, it's clearly because it's not because they don't need the money. It's because they just find that they're not being served. I just want to end off on this point, though, from your perspective and with the experience you've gained in servicing this market, in understanding their businesses. How can the 7th administration approach growing small business in South Africa, be it, the entrepreneurs that have multiple businesses and are high scale up to the mom and pop store down the street who just have one business and they are relying on that for pretty much all of their income and their retirement and everything else? What would you like to see from this government, whatever shape or form it eventually takes?
Yeah, I think we're making a strong call for government to support education, skills development, and ultimately funding and grants for SMEs. I think the most important thing is that the government makes it easier for businesses to do business. Some entities are ahead of the game. I think we've seen some amazing stuff coming from SARS already. I mean, Xero is a great example of some of the integrations that they've started to and collaborations they've had with SARS to make it easier for businesses to remain tax compliant. But I think there's still a bit of a way to go. Potential tax breaks and incentives for SMEs, as well as to incentivize innovation and R&D. And simple things in terms of secretarial work and compliance. SIPC. The other day I actually tried to register a business on SIPC and I was unable to because Department of Home Affairs data was offline. So I think getting the basics right is the most important, and then creating a more connected ecosystem amongst accountants, banks, technology providers, fintechs and government to better support business growth.
Well, Daniel, can I put your name forward for the new Small Business Minister? I think you make perfect sense, and we really need to see just a back-to-basics approach about making things easier for small business and entrepreneurs in South Africa. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much. That was Daniel Goldberg, co-founder of Bridgement, and Colin Timmis, country manager for Xero SA, taking us through the recent State of Small Business report produced by Xero and what they'd like to see from the new government to help better support small business here on Classic Business.
Classic Business with Michael Avery, sponsored by Alex Forbes for insight, advice and impact.